Chosen One, you are about to be given authority that will expose all haters near you without you having to lift a single finger. The position you are stepping into is so powerful that every fake person in your immediate circle will be revealed by the sheer light of your new elevation. Every hidden motive and whispered lie is about to be brought into the open by the weight of the sovereign authority you are now inheriting, proving that your survival was always a prelude to this undeniable moment of public vindication. Wandolano. Let us go back, not all the way, just far enough to understand what has been happening around you without your full awareness. Wandolan, think of your life as a foundation you have been laying for years. You poured everything into it, your energy, your time, your trust. You showed up, you gave, you built, and you sacrificed, and you did it with a full heart because that is who you are. And while you were building, people gathered around what you were creating. Some of them showed up to contribute. Some came simply to enjoy the warmth of what you built. And some, and this is the part you have been slowly waking up to, some arrived, praised what they saw, and quietly began to work against it the moment your back was turned. Not loudly, not in ways that were easy to catch. It happened in small things. Your confidence was redirected into self-doubt. Your reputation was quietly reshaped in conversations you were never meant to hear. A door was closed before you could reach the handle. A carefully placed whisper landed in exactly the right ear at exactly the wrong moment for you. You always felt it. That invisible resistance, that strange friction in relationships that looked perfectly fine on the surface, that exhausting sense of working harder than anyone around you and still landing somewhere short of where your effort deserved to take you. You were not paranoid. You were not oversensitive. You were accurate. Here is what you need to hold on to right now, because it becomes critical as this unfolds. The people creating that friction were not strangers. They were closer than an adversary has any right to be. They were close enough to know your plans, your insecurities, your soft spots, and close enough to be precise about how they used that knowledge. The reason they had access to all of it is because you trusted them with it. Your nature is to lead with trust, to assume the best, to believe that the care you pour into a relationship will be returned in kind. That nature is not what failed you. What failed you is that certain people around you were never playing the same game you were. You were building. They were extracting. Where everything shifts direction. While all of that was happening around you, something entirely different was happening inside you, something no one could reach, something that could not be dimmed regardless of how many quiet moves were made against you. You were becoming something, quietly, stubbornly, almost despite everything stacked against you. You were becoming something those people never planned for, and the divine was watching every step of it. Most people misread seasons of tension. They experience the weight and conclude it is a verdict. It is not. Woefort, the pressure is the preparation. Right now, something in your world is visibly unsettled. The people around you are moving in ways that feel strange. The energy in your closest connections carries a charge that was not there before. Certain people are pressing harder for your attention than they ever have. Others are pulling back without offering any explanation. And people from your past are resurfacing, warmer than you remember, more interested than they have any recent right to be, arriving with open hands and rehearsed smiles. Underneath every single one of those movements is the same engine driving them all. They can feel what is shifting in your direction before you have fully felt it yourself, the way a change in atmospheric pressure is sensed before anyone sees a single cloud. Something is moving toward you, and the people in your orbit, especially the ones who have not been operating honestly with you, are scrambling to position themselves before it arrives. Some are scrambling for proximity. Some are trying to make one final move before the window closes. Some are doing both simultaneously, flawlessly performing warmth while calculating their distance in the background. No duck. This moment is real. It is live, and it demands that you walk into it with both eyes open. No duck. What clarity looks like practically is not suspicion of everyone. It is not retreating from all connection because some connections proved false. It is the specific, grounded ability to distinguish between the people who have been consistent with you in the unremarkable seasons and the people who only surface when conditions are favorable for them. That distinction, that one clean line of discernment, is about to become the most consequential thing in your life. No duck. What is coming toward you requires the right people beside you, and it requires zero tolerance for the wrong ones anywhere near you. If this message speaks to your soul, hype this video so other chosen ones can discover it. No, we arrive at the truth no one in your circle has had the courage to say directly to your face. No, you are not an ordinary person. You never have been. Not in the self-congratulatory sense, in the assigned before you fully understood it sense. You carry something that most people in your immediate environment simply do not have access to. A perception, a sensitivity, a capacity to feel through surfaces and understand things in a way that operates at a frequency most people cannot track. And because they could not track it, they feared it, and because they feared it, they managed it. You were placed in spaces just small enough to feel safe for the people around you. Your gifts were surrounded with just enough ambient doubt to keep you second-guessing your own knowing. You were given enough access to stay hopeful, but never quite enough runway to fully launch. For a season, it actually worked, not because you were weak, but because you were loyal. You genuinely believed that if you remained consistent enough, patient enough, generous enough in your giving, the people around you would eventually rise to meet the standard you were quietly holding. You believed that being truly seen was simply a matter of time. For some of those people, that moment was never going to come, not because you were not worth celebrating, but because celebrating you would have required them to admit that they had been diminishing you. And that is a level of accountability most people will carry quietly to their grave rather than ever speak aloud, not to Lepopic aloud. The divine does not require their permission to elevate you. You do not need a consensus from the people who benefited from your smallness in order to step fully into what you were designed for. The authority being positioned for you was never in their hands to grant and was never subject to their approval. The exposure of what has been operating in the shadows around you is not something you will need to engineer. It arrives as a natural consequence of the light that descends when real authority lands on a life. Tolnight, hold that, because the next part is where it all breaks wide open. Something is activating in you right now, not as a concept to consider, as a lived, felt, undeniable experience that has probably already been showing up in precise ways, if you are honest with yourself. You have been reading people more accurately than you used to. You have been catching things in conversations that would have slipped past you entirely before. You have had moments, more than once recently, of knowing something before you had any rational basis for that knowing. Your instinct issued a clear verdict before your mind had assembled the argument. You pulled back from something, and everything that followed confirmed that pulling back was exactly right. That is not overcaution born from past wounds. That is your discernment activating at the level it was always designed to reach. You've probably noticed a lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have stopped publishing. Videos pulled, voices silenced. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. Tyne, that's exactly why I'm putting you onto something real. Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching Chosen Ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation and attacks, while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition, and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. Join Destiny Engine to support your favorite channels and use it for your own rise. It's a 360 win. Start your Destiny Engine for $7 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. Yo Tal. Now here is the part that will make you pause. This gift becomes most powerful, specifically in the presence of people who are not being honest with you. Think carefully about what that means for your current situation. Every person who has been performing friendship while operating with a hidden agenda, every person calculating what can be extracted from your elevation, is about to become completely transparent to you. Not because you investigate or set traps, because your perception is now operating at a frequency that performance simply cannot survive. You are going to feel the gap between what is being said and what is actually meant. You are going to sense the agenda beneath the offer before the offer is even finished being made. You are going to walk away from a conversation and know, not suspect, but know exactly what was really taking place beneath the surface of it. And what makes this shift so decisive is that the people around you are going to watch you stop responding the way they expected you to. Their moves will not land the way those moves always landed before. They will feel the change in how you engage them and will not be able to name what shifted. That confusion will cause them to overcorrect, to reveal more than they intended, and to make visible what they had kept carefully concealed for a long time. Nor do not have to do anything except remain present. The gift does the work. There is one thing this season asks of you in return. As this clarity comes fully online, it needs a container strong enough to hold it. That means staying grounded, not as an abstract idea to admire, but as a daily non-negotiable practice. Stay connected to your breath. Stay present in your body. Stay anchored to the relationships that have already proven themselves real. The goal is not to become someone permanently scanning every person for hidden intentions. That kind of hypervigilance is its own kind of exhaustion, and it would cut you off from the genuine connections that deserve your full presence. The goal is to have access to this level of knowing when you need it, and to be able to set it down when you are with people who have already earned your trust. That is not a limitation on the gift. That is the mastery of it. This is not abstract. There are specific types of people already in motion toward you, and you need to see each one clearly before they arrive. This person, who may be a family member, a former close connection, or someone who carries the weight of both, is going to approach you with a compelling account of how much has changed, how much growth has happened, how much reflection has occurred in the time since things fell apart between you. The account will carry just enough genuine pain to feel real and just enough strategic framing to serve a purpose beyond the conversation itself. Watch the mechanics of the approach. It will target the part of you that is loyal, the part that remembers what was good before the fracture, the part that wants a different ending than the one that actually happened. Evidence of healing will be offered. Changed behavior will be demonstrated. Remorse may be expressed with apparent sincerity, but here is the line your discernment will show you. Someone who has genuinely transformed does not need a specific response from you in order to complete their own process of accountability. Genuine amends carry no hidden conditions attached to them. Genuine change does not manufacture urgency or apply emotional pressure to accelerate your response. It sits still and allows you to arrive at your own pace. The performance of transformation operates in reverse. The apology builds toward an ask. The vulnerability is timed to lower your defenses at a moment of maximum strategic value. The warmth appears precisely when something is needed from you. Your discernment will register the difference before your conscious mind has finished processing it. Trust what you feel before you trust what you hear. Faux dial do the piece. The second type arrives with an enthusiasm that feels slightly too large for the actual relationship between you. This person wants access. They want to be positioned close enough to what is arriving in your life that some of it flows in their direction. They will frame this as partnership, as collaboration, as mutual enthusiasm for your vision. Dollars, what sits underneath the enthusiasm? It inflates the moment you mention your plans, and deflates the moment the conversation turns to theirs. Contribution is discussed in future tense, while the request for access comes in present tense. There is urgency in how they push, as though your discernment needs to be bypassed quickly before the window of opportunity closes. One to tone collid. Real partnership is patient. Real collaboration does not require you to suspend your own judgment in order to get started. Anyone who needs your critical thinking switched off in order to gain your participation is showing you precisely what kind of participant they intend to be. Desperation tells you that the person in front of you has not done the interior work required to build what you have built, and rather than go do that work, they have concluded that proximity to you is the more efficient path. That calculation, the choice to seek access rather than develop their own capacity, is the very thing that disqualifies them from the access they are seeking. Watson, you have done the work. That fact is not negotiable, and no amount of performance, charm, or emotional pressure changes what that difference actually means. Watson, the cosenabration of the authority arriving in your life right now is not entirely new. It was always yours. It was withheld. It was rerouted. It was held in suspension by circumstances, by the choices of others, by chapters that needed to be lived before this one could begin. There may be something tangible in this. Resources that were supposed to reach you and got caught somewhere between origin and destination. Opportunities that stalled without clear reason. Doors that should have opened and were quietly held shut by hands you did not always see. Watch for these things beginning to move now, not necessarily from the directions you have been monitoring, but from angles you were not tracking at all. There is a gift inside you that was meant to be fully active from a much earlier point in your life. It was present in you before any environment got its hands on you, before anyone with their own unresolved wounds started shaping what you believed about yourself, before the experiences that pressed you into a smaller shape than you were ever designed to inhabit. That original, uncompromised version of you is being restored right now, and the timing is not random. This restoration is happening precisely because of where you are in your own interior work, the healing you chose in the unglamorous spaces, in the quiet, without any audience, and without any applause. That work is what has prepared you to receive this without being destabilized or corrupted by it. You are not being elevated because you are exempt from the process. You are being elevated because you completed it. The authority arriving now is proportional to the work you put in when no one was watching and nothing external was rewarding you for it. Naughty store, there is one dimension of this inheritance that deserves its own moment of reflection. What you are receiving did not originate with you alone. It was moving through those who came before you, but the people before you were not positioned through their own unfinished interior work and unprocessed wounds to carry it cleanly, so it waited. It moved forward through time until someone in the line had done enough of the deep work to hold it without it going sideways. You are that person, which means what lands in your hands is not only for your life. It is for what your life is going to set in motion, for the people watching how you carry this, for the ones who will need living proof that such authority is possible, for someone who came from where you came from and survived what you survived. This is what the entire arc has been building toward. The authority lands, and when it does, the atmosphere around your life changes in a way that is difficult to articulate, but impossible to miss. Indeed, it does not arrive through a single dramatic announcement or one climactic confrontation. What shifts is something more fundamental. A settledness takes hold in how you occupy space. A quiet certainty moves through how you enter conversations and make decisions. It is not performed. It is not calculated. It simply exists in you, and it is new. The people who have been maneuvering around you, treating your proximity as a resource to extract from, those people feel this shift before you have even fully processed it yourself. The version of you they constructed their entire approach around no longer exists. The openings they relied on are closed. The angles they counted on have disappeared, and for the first time they are looking at you without fully knowing what they are seeing. Tumbri, that disorientation is the beginning of the exposure. When a strategy stops working, people do not quietly accept it and move on. They scramble for a replacement, and in that visible, urgent scrambling, they reveal things that were carefully concealed. Connections you were not supposed to know about become apparent. The pattern behind what felt like separate incidents becomes impossible to miss. The coordination that was always present but deliberately scattered suddenly resolves into a complete picture. You do not need to do anything dramatic with what you now see. The most powerful response is to absorb it in complete calm. Let the people around you observe that you see what is happening and that nothing about it is destabilizing you. That composure, unshakable, rooted and real, is itself the most confronting thing you can offer. It tells everyone watching that the game is over, without you having to say a single word about it. Indeed, when the exposure produces noise, and it will produce noise, your response is silence. Not the silence of someone with nothing to say, but the silence of someone who understands that defending yourself to people who have already decided is a form of being controlled by them. Your response to accusations and rewritten histories is not a rebuttal. It is the life you continue to build. It is the forward motion that makes every accusation look exactly like what it is. Watch, and you are. Let the noise happen. You make moves. That is not restraint. That is a different category of power entirely. Real authority is not simply a reward. It is a test of character. And what is being placed in your hands will reveal very quickly what you are going to do with it. The temptation that arrives with this level of clarity is seductive. You are going to know things. You are going to have confirmation of things you suspected for a long time. The pull will be to use that confirmation as a weapon, to expose publicly, to ensure the record is corrected in front of an audience, to make certain every person who doubted you or worked against you is brought face to face with what they actually did. Following that pull will cost you the authority. Not because the desire for justice is wrong, it is not. Not because you do not deserve vindication, you do. But using power for personal satisfaction means using power for yourself alone. And the kind of authority being placed in your hands was never intended to stop at you. It moves through you. It was given to you because you will use it for something larger than the score you have every right to settle. The exposure of the people who operated against you is a byproduct of walking in your full purpose. It is not the destination itself. When you make exposure the goal, you pull your eyes off the actual assignment. And the actual assignment is what you were always built for. The thing that no amount of sabotage or quiet interference was ever fully able to extinguish in you. The Temptalf. Keep your hands clean. Keep your focus forward. Let what needs to be revealed reveal itself through the natural unfolding of what you are building. That approach is not weakness. That is the operating standard of someone who carries something real and intends to keep carrying it. There is also this. The authority you are stepping into was never meant to be hoarded. The people who took and calculated and extracted from you, that is what hoarding looks like. You can see exactly where it left them, empty, dependent, strategizing endlessly instead of creating anything of their own. Your authority stays alive and expanding by doing the opposite. You give what is genuinely yours to give, to the people and purposes that are truly aligned with your path. In doing so, the supply does not deplete, it grows. That is how authority at this level actually works. Do not lose sight of this in the middle of everything else. There are people in your life who have never been performing for you. People who never needed to calculate whether being close to you served their interests. People who appeared in the seasons that had nothing attractive about them and stayed simply because they wanted to be there, not because of what you carry, but because of who you are underneath all of it. These people are not the loudest voices in your orbit. They do not demand confirmation of their worth. They have never required you to prove your loyalty because they were never auditing it. Their consistency is not glamorous. It shows up in small things, in the unglamorous moments, in telling you a hard truth when a comfortable lie would have been so much easier to offer, in not needing you to be winning in order to show up fully for you. The people who are loud, demanding, and agenda-driven have been consuming the majority of your energy. The people who are quiet, genuine, and steady have been receiving whatever was left. That distribution needs to reverse, immediately and completely. The access you have been extending to people who spent it against you, pull it back. Redirect it to the ones who have been holding it carefully all along. The ones who never treated your trust as currency. The ones who never once tried to leverage it against you. You do not need to deliberate over who those people are. Specific faces came into your mind the moment you heard that sentence. That instantaneous recognition, arriving before any analysis had a chance to complicate it, is your discernment already functioning at the level it was designed for. Trust it, act on it, and treat those people with the full quality of presence they have always deserved from you. The exposure does not arrive as a single dramatic moment. That is not how this works. It happens in layers, like a tide pulling back slowly and revealing what has always rested on the ocean floor, invisible from the surface until the conditions finally changed. The first layer is subtle, a comment that lands differently than it used to, an offer whose underlying conditions you can now read in full, the expectations, the invisible price tag that was always there but previously impossible to see clearly. A conversation where you feel the distance between what is being said and what is actually being communicated, and that gap is undeniable to you, even as the other person is still speaking. The next layer is broader. The connection you were not supposed to discover becomes visible. The pattern behind what appeared to be separate, unrelated incidents resolves into something coherent and impossible to dismiss. The coordination that was always present but deliberately scattered suddenly makes complete sense as a whole. And then the full revelation arrives. What was done in private meets the light in a way that no available explanation can credibly address. The people who believed they were permanently beyond accountability find out they were not. The facade that required constant maintenance finally becomes too expensive to sustain. What matters at every layer is how you carry what you now see. You carry it quietly, with the kind of settled knowing that does not need external validation to feel solid. You do not need to build the case and present it to anyone. The case is constructing itself on its own timeline without your intervention. In lived practical experience, this is what that looks like. You are in a conversation and someone deploys the exact move they have always used to trigger a predictable reaction in you: guilt, defensiveness, the compulsive need to explain yourself, and this time you simply do not respond that way. You are present, you are clear, and you continue forward. The approach finds nothing to catch. That calm non-reaction is more definitive than any confrontation ever could have been. It looks like your name being spoken with genuine respect in spaces you have never occupied, by people who have simply observed the difference between how you operate and how the people performing closeness to you actually operate. It looks like what was once whispered becoming impossible to maintain publicly because your life keeps directly contradicting it. It looks like the authority in you becoming so undeniable that denying it stops being a position anyone can hold with a straight face. Exposure is not always a confrontation. Sometimes it is simply the sustained, quiet pressure of truth meeting performance over time, until the performance finally collapses under its own accumulated weight. You are standing in a different position now. The authority is no longer arriving, it has arrived. It is simply who you are. The people who spent a significant portion of their energy managing you find that managing you is no longer possible because the version of you they built their entire approach around does not exist anymore. The people who treated access to you as something to harvest have discovered that the access itself now carries a different quality. It carries discernment, it carries weight, it carries consequences they never factored into their original calculations. The masks are off, not because of a single confrontation or a dramatic public reveal, because you stopped pretending not to see through them. And the moment you stopped pretending, the performance lost its only remaining purpose, a performance that no longer lands anywhere, simply cannot continue. What you feel is not the triumphant vindication you may have imagined in the harder moments. It is quieter than that, and it is more complete. It is simply freedom, a stillness in the space where the noise used to live, a quality of clarity that allows you to hear yourself think in a way you had forgotten was even possible, a lightness that comes from no longer carrying the invisible weight of managing relationships that were never honest with you to begin with. The people who chose envy over growth are still present in some form, still watching, still processing the gap between what they anticipated for you and what actually unfolded, but their watching no longer costs you anything. You cannot be reduced by people who have already fully revealed themselves to you. You cannot be managed by people you can see with complete clarity. What you are building now carries a different quality than what came before, not just in scale but in integrity. Every element of it is clean. The people beside you belong there. The energy going into it is not being bled out by false relationships or quiet interference. The durability of something built that way, built on truth with the right people after everything that tried to stop it, is a different category of durability entirely. It does not require constant defense. It does not need to be maintained against attack. It simply stands. The foundation is intact. What was attempted against it did not succeed, not because nothing landed, but because you proved more durable than anything that was thrown at you. The people standing with you now are the ones who belong there, not because they positioned themselves correctly or performed loyalty at the right strategic moments, but because they were actually loyal. In the seasons when loyalty cost them something, when no one was watching, when there was nothing to gain from it. The authority in your hands has your name on it, in a way that no proximity, no imitation, and no strategic maneuvering could ever have transferred to someone else. It required the specific combination of gifts you were born with, the specific wounds you survived, the specific work you did in the dark, and the specific person you became through all of it. There is no version of events in which what is now yours ends up anywhere else. It was always moving toward you. There is one final thing worth sitting with before this closes. Some of the people who worked against you did not operate from a place of calculated malice. Some of them acted from fear, a deep, unexamined, never-spoken fear that your rise meant their diminishment, that authority was a finite resource, that whatever reached you was being subtracted from them. They operated as though your path and theirs were in direct competition. That fear was always a lie they told themselves. Your position was always only yours. Their path was never in competition with yours, except in the narrative they constructed to justify what they chose to do. You do not owe forgiveness on anyone else's schedule. You do not owe re-entry into your life to people who proved they should not have been there, but you can, in your own time, set down the residual weight of what was done to you, not for their benefit, for the full, unencumbered use of your own energy in the season ahead. Carrying the residue of other people's choices into what comes next is the only remaining thing with the power to slow you down, and you are done being slowed. You arrived here whole, marked by the journey in ways that are now woven into your authority, rather than sitting as open wounds, clearer about what is real, more precise about who deserves access to you, more rooted than any amount of turbulence was able to undo in you. That wholeness is the authority, not a certificate, not a public announcement, not a moment where the world assembles to acknowledge what you always carried. The authority is the unshakable, quiet, permanent knowing of who you are, what you carry, and exactly why it was placed in your hands, and not someone else's. Panajorted Morkanta, walk into a space that belongs entirely to you, fully, naturally, without requesting permission or waiting for validation from anyone who was never invited through the door. The foundation is yours. It was always yours. And the ones who tried to undermine it have just discovered that you knew all along.